Hello, my name is Jorge Corona and I am an IT guy and I am a full stack developer. And today we're going to talk about clean code. What is clean code? Clean code is art. It's beautiful. And anyone can appreciate it regardless of knowing how to program. Clean code does one thing well. It's elegant and precise. It's readable and simple. No. Clean code is not the first thing you write. It's like a painting. It takes a couple of revisions to get it just right. So how can you tell if your code is good or bad? Pretty simple. Count the number of WTFs per minute. The worse the code is, the more WTFs. The better the code is, the less WTF. What does that mean to me? Well, there's lots of questions such as where, why, and what, as in where did you get that concept from, and why you do it this way, and what is going on here. The more questions, the worse the code is. Clean code explains everything well. What's the purpose of clean code? The purpose of clean code is to make the code readable for yourself and make it readable for anyone else on your team. The ratio of reading versus writing code is over 10 to 1. So most times you're reading the code and not writing it. I don't know about you guys, but sometimes I make code and a week later or a year later I look at it and I think, what was I thinking? This is what we're trying to avoid here. When you first write code or start a project, the changes are easy. But a year or 2 years later, making changes is very difficult. This is mostly because of messy, bad, or outdated code. So clean code is readable to humans, has a well-defined properties, and the entire team can understand it today and tomorrow. And of course a year from now. How do we start? First, you need to have working code. Here are my 3 cycles of code progression. Like this is how I think code progresses. You have working code, number 1. Then you do clean code, which we're talking about now, number 2. And then you optimize the code using algorithms. This is done a lot in big companies such as Google, Facebook, Apple. They go to step 3. That's okay. Let's talk about step 2 though. So writing clean code is time consuming and takes a lot of time to clean up your code. So about 8 hours to write clean code and another 8 hours to clean up your code. So you might be asking yourself, why not just write clean code? This is not the way, okay? In programming, iteration is better because code changes so quickly. And you don't want to write clean code just to change it and write it again. You're going to spend more time. So it's better to just write working code and then clean that code up when you get to a certain threshold. So yeah, that's a good question. When should you spend the extra time to write clean code? You should spend the extra time when you have it, or when lots of people are going to be reviewing and or using your code. So here are my tips to writing clean code. Create meaningful names. Write code for humans, not robots. Instead of a random variable, such as this one here, B, for number of users, just label that variable user count. Instead of expired variable, this one here says expired date, which is ambiguous because it could be a date string or a boolean, which is true or false. Label this expired date. If, however, the date is a boolean, which is true and false, such as this one here, date has expired, and the variable you had was expired, or even boolean expired, you want to be more careful about the naming and label it is date expired or has date expired. That's my personal preference. This is key here because we're trying to make sentences for you and for everyone else to read and understand. So absolutely no room for confusion, misunderstanding, or ambiguity. Pick a naming convention and be consistent. This is key here. You need to be consistent. Here are the three most popular naming conventions: camel case, snake case, and Pascal case. Each language has their naming convention that most developers use, so you may want to stick with that. Also, a naming convention for variables might be different for functions and methods. Sometimes the naming convention goes against your preference. And so you have to decide, do you want to go with the flow or go with your preference? And me is, I always go with, I try to go with the flow. And that is really, really just different than I have to go with my naming convention. An example of this would be VBA. They do things a little differently, and I just fundamentally just disagree of how they have their naming conventions. I understand it, but also if the audience is going to be global and people are going to be using this code, I would go with the naming convention. But a lot of time for the VBA, no one's going to look at my code, so I go with my thing. But if I know this is going to be, let's say, open source and people are going to look at it, I'm going to go with the already existing naming convention, even though I don't agree with it. Replace numbers with a constant. So stick with the goal of making code for humans. That's what we want to do. In this example, it says hours covered is equal to 8760. Some of you might know what this means, some of you might not. If we made that into a constant, hours in a year, now it's more clear. Hours covered is equal to hours in a year. Versus before, it was hours covered is equal to 8760, which is hours in a year, if you remembered. Okay, what about this one here? The first thing I think is, what's going on here? Why are there three constants? What do they mean? What is the formula doing? I'm not sure. In that example there, we could use comments. Now, comments are important, but you want to comment when you need to explain something. Okay, what the code is doing. In this example here, this is a simple on-click event, and it resizes the chart on the web page. But when I look at the code, I'm thinking, why is there a set timeout? I think I should remove that statement. But if I add a comment, and the comment says, we need to set a timeout to properly render each chart on tabs. This makes sense. It is clear what's going on and why I need that statement. And this is the only place I can relay to the reader what is going on and why this statement is needed. So comment when you need to explain your code. Make long comments to explain more. Pretty simple, right? If you try to read this, which we will right now, it's going to be very complicated, right? Like, why is there minus 9999? Why are we dividing by 10? And some of you might know why we're multiplying by 9 divided by 5 and that is 32. Okay, this is kind of confusing. Let's add some context here. This is air temperature. Units are Celsius. Scaling factor is 10. Minus 999 is the missing value. Okay, things starting to make sense now. We're converting the temperature from Celsius to Fahrenheit. Got it. All right. Without these comments, I would be absolutely lost to what was going on here. And unfortunately, I see this a lot, that people don't comment enough when they need to comment. Like, this is complicated stuff. What is going on here? Just tell me. You don't have to replicate this 10 times. If you tell me once, I got it, you know. Please don't double comment. Let the code be your comment. I also see this a lot, right? In this example, these examples, actually, we don't need comments. The comment is the same thing as the code, right? Scope, scope, part, part, check for duplicates, duplicates. Why is this bad though? Like, I see this a lot, but why is this bad? Pretty simple. Comments lie. Okay. This example says remove building, but the code is actually going to delete a project. So someone's going to have a bad day. And this happens a lot. Coders, developers, they forget to update the comments. So now the comment is bad. So be careful when you have too many comments. And again, let the code be the comment. And when you need to explain more, explain more. Pretty simple. Okay, so now let's actually clean some code up, right? Capture a complicated piece of logic in a very descriptive self-reading variable. This is a very common if statement, right? To do this big if logic, then do something. Very common. Okay, I'm gonna read this, right? And it doesn't sound good, right, when I read it. If empty station first import and if station active flag, or if empty station first import and station download flag. I'm thinking, okay, what am I trying to do here? So let's clear things up. I made some variables. Is first import, is active, can download. Okay. Now the if statement is much clearer. If is first station and is active, or if is first station and can download, do something. Okay, it's a little clearer, but we can set this one. We can do this one step further. Okay, add more variables. Now it is clear. The if statement says if station has first import or if station can download. Oh my gosh, this is clear. I got it. I know what's going on. This is what I wanted to say in the first time, right? But the first time was working code. So we cleared it up. Now it's very easy to read. If station has first import or station can download. Makes sense. Got it. Right? And all three are programmatically correct. They will work. But one is just easier to understand. And one thing to know here for variable naming, I do love is, can, and has before a variable, because it just makes it easy to understand versus just saying first import. Like what? First is first import. To me, that sounds true or false. Yes, no. Can download. Yes, no. You know, has access. Yes, no. You know, like these are just Boolean yes, no. As I read in the head, it just makes sense to me, at least. But remember, clean code is an art. So your opinion could be a little different. Here's something to watch out for. These are the same, right? You can say that the top is a shorthand notation than the bottom, but these are the same, right? Let me read it to you. If my value is true, then alert yes. That's the first statement. The next one on the bottom says, if statement my value is equal to true, is true, then alert yes. I don't know if you guys notice the difference. One is redundant. The bottom is redundant, right? Very subtle difference. Not a big deal here. Not a big deal. But when I'm reading this in my head, I'm thinking that we don't need equal to true. This is okay. This is okay. But the opposite, to me, this is not okay, right? Let's read the top. If submitted button is equal to false, then alert please submit form. Okay. The bottom says if not submitted button, then alert please submit form. If not submitted button. If you first look at this not submitted button, like you might be filled with anger and be like, what is going on here? I don't understand. But here, what if we put this into context and read it as a developer would read it? This is probably in a form. So then this becomes a question, a sentence, such as, if a user submitted button is equal to false, then alert please submit button. Okay. The next one will be, if a user did not submit a button, then alert please submit form. What? That was like a sentence. I can't believe it. Makes sense to me. The bottom is the winner. If a user did not submit a button, then alert please submit form. That's exactly what I want to do, right? But you may be asking yourself, no one said nothing about a user doing anything, right? I implied it. I read that in my head, what was going on. And to me, the top is more robotic, right? If I say, if a user submitted button is equal to false, like what does that mean? Oh, you mean they didn't click the button? That's what you want to say? Did not click the, oh, there's a not right there. Did not. Got it. To me, it just, I see, clear and muddy. The bottom is very clear. The top is muddy because I have to cognitively think one step further. What does equal to false mean? Oh, did not. Okay. But now, if I make a sentence, it's clear. So this is the whole point of clean code, is to understand the code and have it be clear. All right. Let's continue on. The last thing I want to say is classes and functions should be small and obey the single responsibility principle. Like, well, what is that? What does that mean? Functions are one-trick ponies. They have a maximum of 4 arguments. In this example here of this function, it does one thing and it's done. It could do more, but you see that it's throwing an error, and that's another function. And so this is the goal here. Keep it simple, right? KISS principle. Keep it simple, keep it short, keep it sweet, and limit the number of arguments. Like, why is that? Why would we want to do that? Okay, so the more functions, or the longer the function is, the more arguments, the more difficult it is to debug, to troubleshoot. So we want to limit that and keep it small. And some of you were saying, oh yeah, that's just called refactoring. Like, yeah, it's refactoring, but also you're limiting the function, what it can do. You're not doing 2 things, you're doing just one thing, and that's it. And the goal with classes is to keep them short and sweet and simple, meaning not many lines, right? You can have a lot of functions, that's okay, but just not many lines. So that's kind of it, guys, except for one last thing, which is each programming language has a standard style guide. So you want to stick with that style guide and use a good IDE, which is Integrated Development Environment, which has tools to help you format and clean up your code. A good one would be like VS Code. I like for I do PHP, so it's PHP Storm. That's a great one. I think this is key here, right? This helps you out tremendously. Find syntax errors, use shorthand notation, clean up some formatting. I mean, this is clutch right here. If you want to do clean code, you need to have a good IDE. So, thank you guys for watching. Till next time.